So there we go. So we're going to record the meeting, and we're not too horribly formal in the DEVC.
Mark, you can change your name on your profile there, so you don't have to be Megan for the rest of the.
Okay. If you put your cursor over your picture in the upper right hand corner, a little box with three dots in it.
I see the box with 3 dots. I see edit profile. Oh, rename. There we go.
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect.
So you put and then that way, any latecomers will know that you're not Megan, you're Mark.
Very odd. It would be an odd recording. There we go. Much better. Starting with our customary 15-minute break. Is that how it goes? Yeah, I'm ready when you guys are.
Okay. So why don't you just go ahead, Mark, and take it away, and we'll kind of, ask questions more at the end or during the process. What's your preference?
Perfect. Well, what I'll do is I'm gonna play a short kind of introductory video that introduces me and Arcimoto.
Okay.
And then kind of maybe expound on that a little bit and just open it up for Q&A.
Okay.
So
cool.
With that, can you guys see all see that?
Yep, we got her.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Arcimoto, we build rides. Light, electric, ultra-efficient rides that are outrageously fun to drive. Because getting this with this is nuts. We build Arcimotos for people and for delivery, and for people who help people. We're a public company because we have a public mission, and we invite you to join us. I'm Mark. In 2007, I went looking for something that didn't exist. Because then and now, we drive crazy big, multi-ton extractive rigs for all the simple trips. Times everyone, we pave over half the city, gridlocked, around a world on fire. I wanted a light footprint electric vehicle. Affordable, fun, and dialed for the everyday. I couldn't find it, and thus, Arcimoto, and a new platform for mobility. Twin electric motor front-wheel drive with a burly battery and a powertrain that sips electrons. We launched production of our flagship product, the Fun Utility Vehicle, in 2019. And from the response, we believe it lives up to the name.
This is really fun! Oh my God! It's woo! Oh my God, this is so fun!
Very cool. And wow, does it handle?
Everybody wants it when they see it, and they haven't even driven it yet. The real joy is when you get to drive it, and then you just get the feeling of what it's all about.
Hey Mark, what's up buddy? Just want to let you know how much I am enjoying my amazing Arcimoto. It is an absolute blast. People chasing me down in the neighborhood to see it.
Let me guess, you want one?
I'm gonna buy shares.
Right on.
At the onset of the pandemic, we launched the Deliverator to bring the benefits of Arcimoto's platform to last mile delivery of essential food and goods. The Deliverator's spacious storage suits a wide variety of fleet uses. Its svelte form maneuvers through traffic with ease and parks in spaces no full-size vehicle can. Saving fleet operators precious time means money that flows directly to the bottom line. And we launched the Rapid Responder to help those on the front lines achieve their missions more quickly.
I think that the Arcimoto is the perfect vehicle to implement in our city. It's lighter, it's more efficient, it's quicker. There's the cost savings that are associated with it in terms of sustainability, maintenance. I see this as a daily deployed apparatus. How come the cops aren't using one of these?
Finally, we announced the Roadster, Arcimoto's premium entry into the established class of pure on-road fun machines. We sell direct. Arcimoto adopters place pre-orders and configure options on the website, and vehicles are delivered directly to our customers. The curious can enjoy the Arcimoto driving experience at our rental centers. Our rental first model turns what is normally a costly hurdle to brand awareness into a revenue stream. Every Arcimoto is built here at our factory in Oregon, the AMP, where we transform raw material through part cutting, forming, welding, machining, and final assembly, all under one roof. With the growing demand for alternative personal transportation around the world, highlighted by our thousands of FUV pre-orders, the seismic shift towards home delivery of food and goods, and over 50,000 fire stations in North America alone, we believe Arcimoto is poised for expansive growth. Meeting this demand through mass production is now our primary goal. To that end, we've entered into an agreement to purchase a new facility that will increase our manufacturing footprint more than 5-fold, and we've teamed with industry legends to refine our platform and product family for volume at a price that is affordable to the wide market. We aim to prove our model can scale and this venture can go global. Arcimoto is and always has been powered by a community of stakeholders with whom we share a vision of sustainable transportation, clean skies, and a future that's a whole lot more fun. We hope you'll join us.
So that's the 4-minute and 40-second overview of Arcimoto.
Cool.
As I mentioned in the video, I've been at this now for going on 14 years. I went looking. I was at one point in my life a computer game developer, actually, since I was about 7 years old, and when my parents got an Apple II, and sold my first company in 2007. And went looking for a reasonable everyday ride. I was not looking for a full-size electric car, and there weren't really any in the market to speak of at that point. I wanted something that was going to be much more human scale, but still suitable for the kind of wide range of everyday trips that we all take all the time. Going out with a friend, going to get groceries, going to work, kind of you name it. And all you got to do is actually stand on a busy street corner and watch the cars going by, and it's one person, 4,000 pounds of steel, one person, 4,000 pounds of steel, over and over and over and over again. To me, the idea of sustainable transportation, electrification is obviously a prerequisite, but Arcimoto is not just about the electrification of vehicles. It's about right sizing the footprint of transportation to match what we actually do. It was after months of fruitless search, I saw a kit vehicle called the Buggy in a parade here in Eugene. And for those of you who've been following electric vehicles for a long time, you might be familiar with the Gizmo, which was by a company called Nevco, also here in Eugene, one-person, 3-wheel electric vehicle. The guy who invented that went on to make the Buggy. Anyway, I saw this thing zip by, and that was really, I think, the light bulb moment for me. And what the light bulb really illuminated was the giant gap between the bike and the car. And it was sort of like, we have lots of 2-wheelers on the road, and lots of 4-wheelers on the road, and just really in 2007 there was like nothing in between. And so the fact that it was a kit prompted me to get a kit and cajoled some friends into helping to put it together. And when it was going through that process of building a kit electric vehicle, I sort of realized that a vehicle is nothing more than sort of like a Lego set for big kids. And that if we had a slightly different set of Legos and put it together in a slightly different way, that we could get something that wasn't a niche product, but really met a mass market need. I thought it would take about 6 months to create a viable product. It ended up taking 7 years just to get to the right idea. We went through really 8 distinct design and prototype concepts to land on what is now the fun utility vehicle and the platform that supports all of its variants. And then from there, raised our first venture capital, built looks like, works like prototypes, went public in 2017 to fund the build out of our first factory, launched production in 2019. And then like a number of other EV ventures, 2020, with all of its huge challenges, many of which are still with us, our stock went on a tear, and we were able to leverage that to really build up a much stronger capital foundation, from which we are now really going after mass production. So, and we are this year we actually we have completed the purchase of that new space that's in the video. We are going to start the move-in process or actually the build-out process on that space, like end of July, when the previous owner is done moving out. And we're working with Monroe and Associates. You may be familiar with them. It's a storied Detroit engineering firm on the mass production planning and design of the mass production version of the Arcimoto product family. We also purchased a company at the beginning of this year called Tilting Motor Works. And Tilting Motor Works, their product is a bolt-on front end for motorcycles that turns a two-wheeled motorcycle into a three-wheeled tilting motorcycle. And the founder of that company with that bike set the land speed record for three-wheeled motorcycles at Bonneville a few years back. And it was not ultimately bolt-on motorcycle kits that we purchased them for. We've actually been collaborating now for most of a year on a much lighter weight even version, new vehicle platform that we're targeting for really the micromobility end of the spectrum. So, think electric scooter, electric bike, yet again, another order of magnitude of efficiency improvement, cost reduction, weight reduction, but still targeting solving the 80% trip that we use cars for today. So you can really think of Arcimoto as kind of sitting in bookended by the bike and the car, and we're aiming to provide real solutions for the last mile. I mean, really the last 10 mile solution for transportation that comprises the vast majority of car trips on the road today. I see in the chat where does the name Arcimoto come from? So when I got started, we were originally Electromotion Design LLC, which was kind of a placeholder. And when thinking about the name of the venture, I wanted an A name because vehicle companies are very challenging, and so you might as well sort to the top of the list and take every advantage you can get. I wanted a name that if I Googled it, nothing else came up. So make up a word. And Arc originally represented electricity, and then moto is drive. And then everybody and their brother said they were coming out with something electric. Also, you don't want arcing in your electric vehicle, as it turns out. So Arc became archetype, or the arc of the future. So the Arcimoto means future I drive. It's the brand identity for the next generation of drivers. And the other piece of this is that where we really see Arcimoto sitting is, once you've got the right size vehicle platform, that's one piece of improvement of efficiency of transportation. But the other big piece of it is utilization. The average car spends 95% of its lifetime parked, rusting, depreciating. And so you have this incredibly expensive asset made of highly refined extracted materials that spends most of its life just rusting away. And we have presently about 300 million cars on the road in America, one for every man, woman, and child. And so another big piece of the story is shared vehicles. And we think that the Arcimoto platform really is an ideal solution for what today is, kind of the zip car or car-to-go type of a model. But very soon we see it as a platform that is going to be ideal for autonomy. And we see a very near-term opportunity for autonomy. We are not today aiming for the full level 5 robotaxi that can drive perfectly in every situation. What we're mostly concerned with is getting a vehicle to you wherever you might be, and then letting you drive it from there. So when an Arcimoto is driving autonomously, at least in the near term, it will not have a human in it. It will be restricted to lower speed operation, and then have the capability to be taken over by remote control. And so we think that that's a model that we're going to be able to deploy, sort of much sooner than if we were aiming for, say, what Cruise or Tesla or Waymo are going for, where the robo-taxi is doing all of the work all of the time. And that really comes from just noticing that in every rideshare, Uber, Lyft, taxi, there are almost always two drivers in the vehicle. There's the driver driving and then the driver being driven around. And one of the great things about the Arcimoto is actually the experience of driving it itself. So we want to get you in the seat and do that in the most convenient, lowest cost way we possibly can. And so that's one of the pieces of our story that we are intending to demonstrate this year. That's kind of the backstory. We're aiming for the autonomous rideshare, super affordable, right-sized, ultra-efficient electric vehicle for the masses. And then we have another piece of the business that's aiming at what I think is going to be really a fundamentally new take on the bicycle/scooter class of vehicles. And that's another thing that we intend to at least show off this year. We're presently selling in 4 states: Oregon, Washington, California, and Florida. We are planning to add more markets this year. And then by the time we're in mass production, we want to have really good coverage of at least the domestic market. And then as we look to mass production, really a big piece of that is building the template for true mass scale. So we define mass production right now as the capability to build 50,000 units a year. But we see a global opportunity that eclipses that by orders of magnitude. So part of what we're doing is really building the pattern that we intend to replicate initially in this country, and then ultimately build factories or retrofit factories all over the world to bring this platform to market in other areas where we think it makes a lot of sense. And anywhere you've got crowded streets, dense metros, Southeast Asia, Europe, we think that platforms like the one we're building make a lot more sense than cars. With that, I'm just going to open it up to questions. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me to present, and happy to answer any questions you might have, unless it's material non-public information that I can't share.
Well, we want to thank you for coming and giving us the introduction. And I've kind of monitored your activities over the last few years because I'm on your email list. And so I've seen things progress as they go along, and it looks like you've got a good foundation on what you're doing up there, you know. And
I'm immensely proud of the team that we've assembled, and just, you know, I think we're doing something a little bit different than anything else that I've seen out there.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I think to a person, the Arcimoto team is really in it for the mission. We're here to catalyze the shift to sustainable transportation. And for me, a lot of that has really been about, when you think about what is a catalyst is something that either helps a reaction go faster or enables a reaction to happen in the first place. And in the transition from sort of like the car back down to something that is the scale of a bicycle, the thing about the fun utility vehicle is it's designed for the road of today and the road of tomorrow. And that's really been sort of the key, is how do we build an electric motorcycle for everyone that can live on the road with much bigger vehicles, but yet points the way to a more sane way of getting around. I mean, ultimately, I think the vision of Arcimoto is a city that doesn't suck anymore. And when you think about the sort of the user experience of the city, it's absolutely horrible. We all have, it is how it is, and it has been this way for all of our lives. So, but when you think about the fact that we give over half of our urban landscape to asphalt that paves over deader than the deadest desert, and we move these giant multi-ton machines that take up about 100 square feet each, that are loud and pollutive and incredibly dangerous for everybody else. We think that if we right size the footprint, that cities will become a lot more fun.
Cool. Now, I thought maybe I just kind of glanced down some of these questions that have been put in the chat, and one of them happens to be a question on the specs on the vehicle. I noticed from looking at the website, there's a kind of a specification area in there, and it mentions the top speed and
so critical specs: 0 to fun instantly, infinite miles per gallon, 75 miles an hour top speed, can go on all the roads. It gets 102 miles of city range, and then the FUV in its open form is not particularly aerodynamic, so range falls off pretty fast as you go faster, which is not necessarily a disadvantage. You get about 60 miles of range at 55 miles an hour. We see all of those specs obviously will improve over time, but for the average American driver that's driving 30 miles a day, I think median trips like 5 miles. The basic idea is you plug it in when you get home every morning. You've got a full tank, and it's there for all your daily trips.
Yeah. One of the things that we ran into in the beginning of the DEVC, which was back in 1974, our big objective back then was, reducing dependence on imported oil and reducing pollution. And the general public up there had at that time had difficulty in accepting the low range of the vehicles that were converted back then, and some of the new ones in the area. And it really, what it boils down to, and one of the founders built a 3-wheel enclosed electric motorcycle that he calls Sparky, and that was his approach back then. And for some reason, people have ingrained in their mind this, you got to have a 400-mile range, compete with a gas car, and all this kind of stuff. But that's not the case when you've got 75 to 80% of the people commuting back and forth to work. They don't need this F-150 diesel truck to make a 10-mile or 20-mile round trip. They can do it much better, more efficient, and everything.
I read recently that the 37% of pickup truck owners use the bed portion of their pickup one time per year or less. So it is again, getting a cup of coffee by yourself in a multi-ton truck is just insane. I think and that was really, as I looked at the electric car problem, particularly early on. I mean, Tesla has obviously been just chopping away at every piece of the technology puzzle in order to try and hit cost parity. But the question for us was, what does the cost need to be in order for someone to accept a limited function vehicle? So instead of going after the car idea, which is hundreds of miles of range, carries 5 to 7 people, our question was, can we hit something that's close to $10,000 that does all of the daily things? And then the fun factor is really sort of the spoonful of sugar that helps the clean tech medicine go down.
Definitely. Yeah, that's I think it's cool in that it's something that fits an area that there's nothing else available for, especially in the electric atmosphere and efficiency and everything. Do you have any kind of a handle on what the mile per gallon equivalent is? I mean, that kind of varies with range and load and all this sort of
Yeah,
thing.
today's Arcimoto is 173.7 mpge for daily for city driving. So we beat the Model 3 by, I don't know, 15% or something like that, which is I think a testament to Tesla's engineering. Honestly, I mean, the fact that they have made that vehicle as efficient as they have is just phenomenal. But they're still pushing around thousands of extra pounds of material for daily driving. As we look to the future, our target for the next iteration is 230 mpge, and I think we're going to likely get close. And then for our micromobility vehicle, we want to get as close as we can to 1,000 mpge. But that's for obviously a much lighter weight vehicle.
Now, at one time there was either a 2 or 3 wheel rebate or something to the federal government. Do you know if any of that still exists or not?
The 2-wheeler one is currently in effect. The 3-wheeler one sunsetted years ago. The nice thing about, and I see a question here about the Biden agenda. Oregon Senior Senator Ron Wyden is the chair of Senate Finance. And so he finally has the pen, which we think is a good thing.
Cool. Now, I know some of the states may or may not have something, but I know at least Colorado has had some in the past, you know, and it's kind of disappeared, but it's not to say that something can't be brought back, especially when there's something that's available, you know.
Yeah, and we've seen, so Oregon has now adopted, you get up to $5,000 back for an Arcimoto in Oregon. You get $2,250 back in California. We've had actually quite a lot of luck in terms of our advocacy efforts at state government levels, because the states are now seeing, you know, such a pressing need to move to clean transportation. And it makes it a lot easier for people to afford it if you start with an affordable vehicle and then give additional incentives. So we think we really think that normalizing around efficiency rather than like battery size is where credits ultimately need to go. But at the end of the day, we want to build something that once we are at, you know, sort of true mass production, will be able to be affordable without any kind of credit scheme at all.
I noticed one thing in that you have one of the options is half doors, you know, to make it a little more enclosed. Now, at one time, did you have more of a full door existing, or?
We have some prototypes of full enclosure, and that's definitely on the drawing board for down the road. The ultimate vision is that the fun utility vehicle will be sort of like a Jeep. You know, the weather's nice, you take the doors off. You really, that experience of being in the world is so powerful, particularly with an electric vehicle, because it's quiet. You know, you're in this small vehicle, you can interact with the people around you and the world around you. There's certainly environments where full enclosure will be a requirement, but there's a lot of market where an open vehicle makes a lot of sense, particularly at a low cost. And you know, we're here in Eugene, Oregon, where it rains, or used to rain 160 days out of the year. I drive it year round, you know, rain or shine, cold or warm, with it open. And the fairing does a really good job of keeping the water off. As long as you're dressed appropriately to be outside, you stay dry. It's got heated grips, heated seats, and it's just a whole lot of fun to be in that experience and have it be raining outside, and yet you're still get that in the world experience. It's not for everybody, but we see a much wider market opportunity for that than, say, you know, a typical motorcycle or a bicycle or something like that. So as we scale up and as we aim for more and more markets, we'll have more and more options, both for different levels of enclosure and climate control, as well as different utility functions. So we introduced the Deliverator for last mile delivery. We've got a flatbed version now. We have a camera version for doing filming on the road. We're doing a bunch of, really aiming at a bunch of different slices of the overall market to demonstrate that it's not about having a Swiss Army knife SUV. It's about having the right tool for each of those jobs, and then ultimately making those shareable and very, very affordable, so that you're really maximizing utility and minimizing footprint with every trip.
Now, in the years that you've kind of, this has evolved, I would imagine that probably somewhere along there you kind of considered the side-by-side versus the tandem seating.
Yes. So there were a couple of reasons that pushed us in the direction of tandem seating. One is that the dominant pattern on the road is just one driver in the vehicle. We travel alone in cars almost all the time. And so the idea initially with Arcimoto was build a one-person vehicle. Our first 3 prototypes were essentially one-seat vehicles. And what happened was we showed those around, and the consistent feedback we got, 99% of the feedback was, I will never buy a one-seat vehicle. And it makes sense. When you buy a cool new electric vehicle, kind of the first thing you want to do is take somebody out for a ride. And if you get a one-seater, it's sort of like, well, here are the keys to my fancy new vehicle. Doesn't really, you don't get the social network effect. So that made us, and actually the inventors of the Gizmo, the founders of that company came to me and said, if we had one piece of advice, just one, it would be make sure there are 2 seats. So then the design question was, well, how do you get 2 people in a vehicle, but still keep it to the size of a one-person vehicle? And that's tandem, particularly on a 3-wheel platform, is what makes by far the most sense. If you want to make a stable 3-wheeler, you really want the passenger mass to be on the center line. And if you don't, then you've got to widen the track to the point where you've got something that's as wide as or wider than a typical car. And so with the tandem configuration, then it became a real challenge of, well, how do we offer a first-class ride experience for both occupants? And that took years of tweaking, and then finally kind of the blinding flash of the obvious, which was ditch the steering wheel, move to handlebars, seat the passengers more upright, like as though you're in a city scooter. And that let us create a much smaller vehicle that was still fits large people very comfortably. So I sit comfortably, I'm 6'4", sit comfortably front and back, and yet the vehicle is not much bigger than a touring motorcycle. And it also, we had this kind of an odd, unexpected when we put our 8th generation prototype on the road, which is that the curvature of the windshield creates this sound, a really nice sound bubble. And so you can have a very social, conversational experience in an open vehicle at 40 miles an hour with the person that you're riding with. And so you get, it also makes it much easier to get in and out when you're sitting that way. So that ended up being one of the real wins of our 8th generation design. There have definitely been folks who've wanted the side-by-side experience, but in my experience, that's not the right way to do a 3-wheeler. If you want that, then get a small 4-wheeler.
Yeah. Now your capacity of production at the factory that you're in now, do you still have room for a little increased output there?
We are shooting for 500 customer vehicles built this year. We think that if we were to focus solely on scaling production within the facility that we've got, that facility just packed to the absolute gills could produce somewhere in the 3,000 to 5,000 vehicles per year range. But our big constraint this year really relates, I think, largely to, well, a couple of factors. One is that we're pushing for much higher unit volumes. So we need to, in order to achieve our price targets, we need to be building at much higher volume. And that's why we bought a new facility. That's why we're shooting for 50,000 units a year. So the big focus of the team is not on cranking out the vehicles as we are building them now. The big focus is on getting to scale production at a lower cost point, and we're targeting Q4 of 2022 for kicking off that mass production facility. And the other real challenge, and this is true across the industry right now, is that the supply chain is super choppy. Everything from all of the knock-on effects of COVID, the blockage of the Suez Canal, and then now we're seeing outbreaks of COVID in some major port cities. And so we've got, the automotive industry is facing major chip shortages, big delays in the supply chain. So we really decided that 2021 is all about building the foundation for scale. It's about demonstrating the breadth of the Arcimoto product family potential. It's about getting autonomous versions on the road in meaningful ways in terms of demonstration. It's about fleshing out the whole product family, and then really pushing for scale when we've got a bit of a longer time horizon.
Okay. Seems to be a question on charging here. Currently, you use the 120 AC, but you can use 220.
Yep, it'll support 120, and that's what I use. I just plug it into the 120 outlet in my driveway, and then it's got a J plug, so J1772. It'll plug into any of the kind of standard level 2 charging stations.
Okay. What's the kilowatt hour capacity of the battery pack you currently have?
It's a 20 kilowatt, well, 19.2 kilowatt hour pack.
Okay, and at some point in time, I think you were kind of looking at an option of a longer range battery pack.
Yeah, and that's something that we see down the road, is that we're planning to sort of offer a shorter and a longer range pack. Where we landed was 100 miles. Our ultimate plan is to have like a 70 mile and a 130 mile or more. But for low volume production, it really made sense to just focus on one battery.
Okay. And I guess with a smaller pack like that, I guess if a person was going to go some distance or something and they wanted to do a fast charge on it at a faster charging rate, is that capability there or not yet?
We see DC fast charge as an option that we're looking at for a down the road version. Okay. Presently, we just do level 1 and level 2.
Okay, cool. And then now on your battery charging system with the lithium batteries, are you trying to keep that in the 80-20 window for longest battery life?
So the cells that we basically go 90, we charge up to 90 by default, which is, I think, 4.1 volts per cell. And that's been the recommendation of our supplier. We can go all the way up to 4.15 for the 100% charge, but that's you basically hit a button saying, go to full charge this one time if you're going to do a longer range drive, but to keep the battery in good condition, the default is just to go up to 90%.
The 90%. And then is there some cutoff on the bottom?
Yeah, it absolute cutoff is 5%. But again, for this pack, we're using pouch cells, so they don't have quite the same performance characteristics as say the Tesla cells, but we're expecting for full depth of discharge, the spec on this cell is 2,000 cycles or more. So if you were to drive it full to empty, couple 100,000 miles, that is within the realm of the possible. We're using the same cell that's in the Zero motorcycles, and their expected lifetime is in the 10 to 15 year time window.
Okay, cool. And that's a prismatic cell rather than a cylindrical cell?
Yeah, it's a pouch. So
It's a pouch. Okay, yeah, that would be prismatic then.
Yeah, so we buy pouch cells and then we build them into modules and packs.
Okay. Okay. Let's see here. What else do we have? Do you have any like an AC outlet on it, or is that?
Well, I see a question there for, is AC available? I think that was air conditioning.
Oh, yeah. That could very well be. Well,
yeah, so we see
either way.
We see the potential for an AC and kind of full climate control for a fully embodied version is going to be a feature down the road.
Yeah, another one down the road.
And then I'm seeing a number of questions around safety. So, it's important to point out that the Arcimoto is a motorcycle class vehicle that is 1,300 pounds. So in any collision event, you are at a substantial mass disadvantage with, say, the Ford pickup that is being talked about here, versus vehicles in that sort of small vehicle class. We think the Arcimoto has some real advantages. One is, particularly versus motorcycles, it's a stable 3-wheel vehicle platform. It's got 2 wheels in front. It is driven from the front wheels, so it's a much more maneuverable vehicle. You brake from the front wheels, and then a lot of small vehicles are very low slung, so you are hard to see on the road. In the Arcimoto, you sit up at about the height of a crossover SUV, which means that you have a lot of visibility of other road participants, and other people have a much easier time seeing you. In the event of an event, you have a roof that passes the FMVSS 216A roof crush test. Yet we actually have 2 seat belts for each passenger, a 3-point that goes each way, that has sort of the, it's aimed to be sort of the functional equivalent of a 4-point harness that really keeps you inside the cage. Somebody pointed out here that on Facebook, we actually had our first serious accident in an Arcimoto for one of our customers, who was T-boned at about 35 miles an hour by a Toyota down in Southern California. He was knocked off the road, rolled over, and walked away. And he posted on Facebook, he said, this vehicle saved my life. He said, I couldn't have done better in any other vehicle. We're very thankful that 72-year-old gentleman, and he can't wait to get his next one. So, we really took a lot of due care in terms of, not just putting a cage around the occupants, but actually we tested the hell out of it, really made sure that the belts were going to hold. And so for the things that we added voluntarily that are not typically present on a motorcycle, we took due care to test them according to the standards, some of the standards for cars.
I see one of the questions on here. How does it do on unpaved roads and speed bumps and all that sort of thing?
It's got actually, the one that does the best on off-road is actually our Roadster product. It's kind of an off-roadster, but we had basically 9 years to really dial in the suspension for this 3-wheel architecture. So for a lightweight vehicle, it actually does really well over bumps. It's not a Lexus, but it'll be a little stiffer than that experience. But it's I'd certainly encourage you guys to give it a try.
Now you do have a regenerating lever on there that you can utilize in addition to the mechanical brakes.
Yes. Yeah. So the way that it works, it's a standard motorcycle twist throttle, and then there's a little trigger for the regen. So instead of having kind of like the 1-pedal regen that's typical in cars, you actually get really fine control of regen. And if you want to do really aggressive regen, it slows you down very well, to the point where I rarely touch the hydraulic brake except to hold a stop. Or if you want to brake with a lot of braking force, then you just jam on both of them.
So that is variable, and so the harder you pull on the trigger, the more regen.
That's right.
That's cool.
And then what that also gives you is that you can let off the throttle and just coast. And of course, when you're coasting, that's the most efficient way to run the vehicle.
And of course, you have one of the comments in here is you got two motors, so you got one on each front wheel. Do you use any like torque vectoring?
So the initial product shipped with a pretty primitive version of torque vectoring, basically it's a virtual differential in software that gives you more torque to the outside wheel and turns. What we're doing right now is we've teamed up with a really sharp team down in San Francisco to dial in the dual motor control, and it is proving that was a very good choice for how to do the drivetrain, to the point where what they've got now is that they can basically dry steer the vehicle with just a potentiometer. So using only the motors can dry steer the vehicle. You get a lot, ultimately we'll be able to do things like traction control and stability control with that precision motor control, and stuff you would just never be able to do with a differential.
Is there some kind of time frame that you think down the road when you might be playing a little more with the autonomous aspect?
Well, we've said we want to demonstrate it this year, so stay tuned.
I noticed you had a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on that. That covers the whole drivetrain and the battery pack?
Correct.
Well, I think that looks like that covers the questions that we had here so far, and the ones that I had jotted down. Now, are you going to be from the two coasts? Are you going to kind of be moving in to the various states until you make it?
It's like risk. You just sort of, you got your units placed, and then we're just going to,
Yep.
we want to, the sort of the next big zones are going to be adjacent to where we're at now. We see obviously a big opportunity in the Northeast. We've got a bunch of pre-order customers in Colorado. So Colorado is definitely on our radar. You guys have been really good early adopters of electric vehicles. And so we see a real opportunity there. And I think we're planning to get out there either this summer or early fall, at least for test drive events. And then likely next year we would see actual permanent footprint there.
Yeah, we definitely need a heads up when you do a test drive event here in Colorado, because there's a lot of eager beavers that would like to.
Well, and I'm thinking, so our model for in-market experience is rental, and I'm thinking places like Vail and Aspen and all that would be just perfect rental locations during the summer months. And I think we're going to have opportunities where we'll like have vehicle rentals in the northern states in the summertime, and then those vehicles will move south as the snowbirds fly off to Arizona and Florida and places like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've kind of got down to the wire of mapping Colorado as far as reservations you've got so far, but they probably kind of center around Boulder or maybe Aspen or some of those other kind of areas.
Yep. No, I'd have to go check with our marketing team to see sort of exactly where we're clustered, but that would be my guess.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's interested, if you sign up for our newsletter on arcimoto.com, then and make sure you put in your state and location, then when we are in your area, we will let you know and get you in the driver's seat.
Cool. I'll have to double check that and make sure I've got the state and location in there.
And I should also say this, which is that we are having we're having a big summer showcase event in Portland on July 26th. So we're going to be that will be sort of our official public launch of the Roadster. And we reserved Portland International Raceway. We're going to be showing off a lot of cool stuff. So for anyone who's out on the West Coast during late July, we would love to have you. Just send an email to summershowcase@arcimoto.com.
Okay.
And I'm going to send that to everyone here. And we would we'd be glad to have you.
Cool. Let's see. There was one question on here I think I can answer because I looked at the website and saw it, but it's 1,300 pound weight and you've got like a 500 pound payload for a gross.
That's right.
Of 1,800 pounds. Cool.
That's it. Our long-term target is to get very close to 1,000 pounds. I think we're going to get very close to that on the mass production version. The Roadster is already, I think, close to 150 pounds lighter than the FUV. The Roadster is about the most fun you can have in an electric vehicle. And I say that knowing that the Plaid just came out, but there is something just absolutely, I would say it's somewhere between a magic carpet and a broomstick in terms of the experience. You're just in the world. Yeah. Anyway, would love to get you guys in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Now, do you have any different motors in the Roadster than you do in the FUV?
It's the same platform, but it's lighter and the CG is lower, and you ride it in you can ride it in a crouched position, and you just get the whole world experience.
Yep.
Where the FUV's got a cage, and that makes a pretty big difference.
Yep. Cool. Now you did mention the possibility of coming down at the hill climb for next year. Now, since it's technically a three-wheel motorcycle, a couple of years ago they stopped the motorcycle portion of the hill climb that they had going for several years. And
Yep. Yeah,
I think this is the third year that they're haven't had motorcycles up there, and I haven't heard anything as to whether they're going to do motorcycles next year or not. But would that still kind of fall in the? We've never in the 9 years I've been going up there, there hasn't been a three-wheel.
Well, that's going to make the course record real easy to set.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
we'll certainly be in touch with the organizers. We're not interested in one of the things I love about the Arcimoto is that the fun factor is there on the grocery run. You don't need to go really fast to have a lot of fun with an FUV. And so we're not there to set any records. We're there. We'd just be there to have a good exhibition run and wave to the crowd.
I think it was about 3 years ago, we had a guy that was up here from Texas, and he had a bolt-on to a regular motorcycle, three-wheel type thing, tilting, so on. But I don't remember the name of the company, but you had mentioned one earlier.
If you had a bolt, I'm pretty sure that Bob Mile did the Pikes Peak climb in his Tilting Motorworks vehicle. And that is the company that we acquired.
And that was in the last few years?
Yep.
I don't remember that one. But
it was a tilting bolt-on kit for a motorcycle. That's Bob.
Yeah, he was here. At least this guy that was here, I'd have to look in my address book. But he was here at the Fan Fest, but I don't think he went on the peak, but I may have missed it. So it might be a different person. So.
Well, I really appreciate y'all taking the time this evening to hear the Arcimoto tale, and would love to get you guys behind the handlebars when time permits.
Yeah, we'll all be anxious to take it for a spin and get that fun feel from the FUV.
Right on.
Anybody else have any last questions for Mark? Looks like that's pretty good. So, hey, thanks, Mark, for joining in with us and giving us a little insight on that. I've kind of been favoring that for quite a while. It's my first electric. I converted a Yamaha 250 Big Bear to electric. So
Nice.
it was a two-wheeler, but you know, the bugs on your teeth is a fun experience.
Truly, truly. Well, my mom forbade me from riding two-wheeled motorcycles from birth.
Yep.
But now she's got an Arcimoto, so
Yeah.
it's the closest I can get to that experience.
Yeah. There you are. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Mark. We'll let you go. You probably got busy things to do, so we
I
appreciate
got to go meet up with the team, and we're cooking up a big vision video. So we'll
Cool.
this is good practice for that conversation.
Okay. Great. So
Right on.
thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys.
You
Have a
bet.
great night. Cheers.
Well, that was fun. Any last minute comments from anybody?
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, good idea.
What's that? Was that you, Kathy?
It was me. I said that was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Great to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it was neat. And, you know, they spend a lot of years to get where they're at. And it's not, you know, something that was just slapped together and they're in business. It's been a good thought out process the whole time. And I think they're going to continue to just, you know, grow with it as it goes. It's going to fill an application that there's nothing else out there. So, well, great. If anybody's interested, they can always come to the Pikes Peak Hill Climb tech inspection on Monday. And don't forget our regular meeting this Saturday at 10, when we're going to be talking to a couple of people from Excel Energy. So I guess that's it. And we did pretty good time on that. Covered a lot of territory. It was great. Thanks for setting that up, Julia.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you all Saturday maybe, or whenever. Cool beans.